Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nolobududu. Today's video is a continuation of the CTA Exam Prep Series. It's the last video in the series and I will be looking at discussion questions. Specifically, I'm going to provide you with a framework that you can use for your accounting discussion questions. Let's get started. I used to struggle a lot with discussion questions in varsity. The biggest issue was that I really didn't know what was required of me in any particular question. There's those type of sort of easier discussion questions where it's quite clear what was required. For instance, if they would say, discuss the accounting treatment of, then I know what needs to happen. Accounting treatment includes recognition criteria, where I also look at, the definition if required, or maybe they've excluded it. And then I'd also look at the measurement requirements, So those ones were quite okay for me because at least I knew exactly where to go. Some other questions that were stated a bit differently, a bit cryptic, you get questions like critically assess the appropriateness of this journal entry, and then they'd give you a journal entry, or judge the statements made by management concerning item 1, for example. And I would look at that, and I think those words, critically evaluate or assess or judge, I'd be like, I don't know, I can't make judgment, I don't know, maybe they're right, I don't know, so that would throw me off, and my mind wouldn't go straight to, okay, they want to see whether the accounting treatment is appropriate. I would never go to that. I would always think they want me to go deeper to a place that really I've never gone before. But generally speaking, what they were asking me in those different words was really just to assess whether the accounting treatment was correct, or whether the recognition criteria was correct, or whether the measurement was, the measurement that was used in that question was okay. That's really what they were asking. It's just that they were not using words like discuss accounting treatment, because in real life, when you encounter accounting problems, whether you're auditing or you're a financial manager, whatever it is, that accounting issue is not going to come to you as a perfect question that says, hey, discuss the accounting treatment. You have to critically assess. You have to make judgments. You have to identify certain issues yourself. So the exam tries to mimic as best as possible what will inevitably happen in real life. No one is going to tell you, hey, this is something that you need to look at. You need to be using your mind consistently and constantly being aware of the standards in the back of your mind. And when you see a transaction, it must then trigger something in the back of your mind to say, okay, which standard is applicable? Has this been dealt with correctly? That is why I think I'm correct. That is why when they ask discussion questions, it's not always so straightforward. But at the end of the day, and that's the purpose of this video, at the end of the day, basically what we really want to get to is, what is the accounting treatment? Sometimes you'll have exclusions, and obviously, exam technique, pay attention to exclusions. They might say, don't address the definition, or don't address the measurement, whatever it is, just pay attention to exclusions. But generally speaking, you're looking at some element of accounting treatment. So this video, the purpose of this video is to just give you a framework that you can use while you're practicing for your exams, and when you're busy with discussion questions, especially if you're getting stuck, you're not able to really start writing something on paper. You see the required and you really don't know where to start. If you're experiencing that, I think this framework could help you. If you are fine with your discussion questions and you're flowing, please continue with what you're doing. I'm going to use an example using saica's ITC exam from 2020, the January 2020 ITC exam, and it is paper 4. All right, I'm using paper 4. Yes. So let's look at that. There's quite a few transactions in there, but I'm just going to look at this journal entry. So I'm sharing this journal entry with you now. So in this journal entry, you see that you're provided with a journal 1 and journal 2. In journal 1, they give you the debit to bank or income received in advance, revenue received in advance, and then a credit to revenue. And then the next journal is a debit to cost of sales and then a credit to bank. And just to give you background on this transaction, what happens is there's an entity that provides a transport app, and they connect consumers with different transport providers. And when consumers use the app, the money goes into this entity's bank account. Hence, we see their debit bank. But what they're doing is when they receive this money, they then credit revenue immediately, even though they're not the ones providing the service. And then any amounts that they actually have to pay over to the actual service providers, they then treat that as cost of sales. So you're given this journal entry and you need to assess whether this journal entry is appropriate. So when you look at the information in the scenario, already you should be picking up that this app, that this entity that provides this app is actually playing the role of an agent. And when you look at this journal entry, the question now is, have they accounted for this transaction correctly in their books, right? And that's where you start. So I'm going to use this framework to see how would you approach a question like this. Firstly, you identify what the issue is. We've seen the journal entry. Not only do you identify it, but you actually write down in your script that they've processed a revenue the gross amounts that have been received from customers, and then they've treated payments that are made to the transport providers, they've treated those payments as a cost of sales, right? You state that. And basically, what are they then saying? They're treating themselves as principals in this transaction. And really the question is this correct? Yes or no? So you state that this is what they've done, and therefore the implication is they're treating themselves as principal. Or you could say, is this correct? Is this correct? And what by looking at this journal entry and really assessing what's going on here, you are leading yourself to the standard. You know that this is an IFRS 15 question, and also you're narrowing in on the specific section within the standard. So if you're familiar with your standard, you'll know that there's the main section of the standard, and then there's the B paragraphs, and the B paragraphs then address specifically unique revenue transactions, and one of those would be principal agent transactions. So when you need to discuss, you are not going to go and talk about the 5 steps of revenue. No, this is only I think it's like a 10 mark or 9 mark question. You do not have enough time to discuss all of that. You zero in on the core issue and you apply the theory that is relevant to this specific transaction. So the next step, having stated and written down what the issue is, you then state what the standard says concerning that. So what does the standard say a principal must be? What are the conditions that must exist for an entity to identify as a principal in the transaction? You write the theory down. But with saica, you only get marks for writing the theory once you have actually applied the theory to the scenario. So you write the theory down and then you apply it, and that's only when you get the theory mark. But also something to just bear in mind, especially like even in your B paragraphs, you'll find a main paragraph like B37, I don't know, let's just say for example B37, and then B37 will have B37A, B or C. So it's subsections of that B paragraph. You're not going to be getting marks, a mark for writing B37 and then a mark for writing B37A, B37B. No, that's not going to happen because those all relate to one idea. So you'll get your theory mark for identifying the main issue. You don't get a theory mark for writing out each and every single part of that one particular idea. Just remember that. So you state what the standard says and then you apply it. You test it against the scenario. In this case, you're testing to see, do these guys qualify to treat themselves as a principal, right? And then having applied that and you've written it down, you write the theory, you apply it, The next step then is to actually conclude. I want to see you writing a conclusion that these guys do not meet the requirements as per paragraph B36 or B37, whatever it is, and therefore they should not have treated themselves as a principal. So you actually need to state that conclusion sentence, and that might need you to consider not just the recognition criteria but the measurement as well. Remember, there's both issues, recognition and measurement as well. So when you're dealing with the theory and application, you deal with that, and then you conclude. But you're not done. Having concluded, say for instance, if you conclude that the accounting treatment is correct, then obviously you stop. But if you conclude that the accounting treatment is incorrect, or what they have done in the journal entry is incorrect, you now need to take it a step further, especially if they ask you a question like assess the appropriateness, right? Then you need to actually take it a step further and say, this is actually what they should have done. And then you might then need to then refer to additional theory that appropriately deals with the transaction, or you might still refer to the theory that you have written down and then state they should have actually done XYZ in accordance with this paragraph. So now you've actually done the complete exercise of assessing the appropriateness of that particular journal entry. So that's the fourth one, is to state what they should have done. This might require you to go to additional theory, additional paragraphs in the standard, or you might refer to the paragraph that you've already written down. Then the last step in this framework would then be to identify any other issues that have been given to you in the question that might actually score you an additional mark here or there. So in this example, what we saw is they debited bank, but they also debited the revenue received in advance. So, it's actually quite random, but you should know that when money comes in, and it's revenue received in advance, you wouldn't debit it. You would actually credit revenue received in advance because it is a liability. So you can score yourself a mark by just picking up one or two of the other issues that you might see. If it looks odd, it's probably an indication that you should actually say something about it. So you write it down and you score your mark for any other matters. So I've given you the 5 steps where you identify the issue and you write it down. Identify what they've done, write it down. You check the standards to see what the standard says. You write the theory down and then you apply it to the scenario. Then you conclude. You state, yes, this is appropriate, or no, it is not. And remember, at every stage, you're dealing with recognition and you're also dealing with measurement unless they have excluded one or the other. Then if you need to then show what is the correct step to follow, you go to the appropriate standard, the appropriate paragraph, or you refer to the paragraph that you've already written down. And then finally, you look at any other issues that might be raised in that question and you write it down. The key thing is to write all these little things down and to score your marks. So guys, that's my recommendation, my framework to help you in terms of just generating marks when you have very odd discussion questions. I wish you all the best in your exams. I know it is pressure time and you're probably really stressed right now, but remember, you are almost there. So don't quit. Just keep going and give it your best. Thank you for watching my video. Cheers.